Hey there! If you're a principal investigator or you're part of the key personnel on a sponsored project, you already know that managing a grant involves a lot more than just the science. So, in this explainer, we're going to break down one of the most critical parts of that management, making sure every single dollar you spend is actually allowable.
I know, it sounds a little dramatic, right? But this question really gets to the heart of why every purchase, big or small, truly matters. Understanding these rules isn't just about dealing with bureaucracy. It's about protecting the integrity and, honestly, the success of the funding you worked so hard to get.
All right, so let's dive in. Why is this such a big deal anyway? Well, because getting this right is absolutely fundamental to safeguarding your research, your team, and even your institution's reputation.
And look, this isn't just about ticking boxes for the admin office. Good stewardship builds trust with your sponsors, which is huge. Fewer delays mean your research can move forward faster. And of course, reduced audit risk means you get to focus on the science, not on digging up receipts to justify something you bought a year ago. It's really all about efficiency and peace of mind.
Now, this is something you absolutely have to get. Even if your grant isn't from a federal agency, your university applies these same federal standards, what's known as the uniform guidance, across the board. So the principles we're about to cover today, they are universal for all of your sponsored projects.
Okay, so where do we even start? Well, every single spending decision really comes down to four foundational principles. If you can get your head around these four, you're already most of the way there.
First up, we've got reasonableness. People often call this the prudent person test. You just have to ask yourself, would another reasonable, well-informed person look at this purchase and say, yeah, that seems like a sensible and fair price for that item right now? It's really your first gut check.
Next is allocability. This just means you have to be able to draw a straight line from the cost directly to your project. Did your project specifically need this? Does it directly benefit the work? And hey, if it helps out a few projects, that's fine, but the cost has to be split up in a way that you can actually justify. Then we have consistency. This one is simple. You can't treat the same type of cost differently just because the money is coming from a different pot. For example, if you normally treat basic office supplies as an indirect cost, you can't just suddenly charge them directly to your grant because you've got some extra funds. You got to be consistent. And that brings us right to what a direct cost is. This is the goal for any charge you put on your grant. It has to be something you can point to and say, with a high degree of accuracy, yep, my project needed this exact thing to get the work done. Okay, so with those four big principles as our foundation, let's build a really practical tool you can use for every single purchase. Think of this as your go-to checklist to stay in compliance.
Now listen, a cost has to pass every single one of these tests. It's not a best out of 7 situation. If it fails on even one point, like say you lost the receipt and don't have adequate documentation, that entire expense could be disallowed during an audit. This checklist right here, this is your shield.
All right, theory is great, but let's make this way less abstract. Honestly, the best way to get a feel for this is to see some real-world examples of how these principles actually work day to day. So take a look. Over on the left, you've got things that are almost always good to go, like PI salaries and lab supplies. In the middle, you see stuff that's trickier. You'd need a really strong justification to charge these directly. And on the right, yeah, those are the never-evers. There is no amount of justification that will ever make alcoholic beverages or a parking ticket an allowable cost on a grant. Here's a classic one we see all the time. Those specialized reagents you need for your experiment, that's a clear direct cost, totally allowable. But the box of pens and stack of folders for the lab office? Nope. Those are generally considered overhead or indirect costs, and you can't charge them directly to your grant. This example shows a really crucial nuance. Sending your graduate assistant out to collect data is a perfect allowable travel cost. But, and this is a big but, within that totally legit trip, some expenses are strictly forbidden. Upgrading to that first-class seat or trying to expense drinks from the conference reception will get you in hot water every single time. So, you know the rules, but how do you actually put them into practice without it becoming this giant, stressful thing? Let's talk about some simple, proactive habits that will keep you on track and seriously minimize your risk. You want to know the secret to a stress-free project? Here it is. Document everything. Review your budget every month. And probably the most important thing on this list, if you have any doubt, any hesitation at all, just ask your research administration office before you buy it. Seriously, a 5-minute email up front can save you hours of headaches down the road.
We have covered a whole lot of ground here. So to wrap everything up, let's distill all this information down into one final, super powerful tool that you can use every single day.
Before you or anyone on your team swipes a card, just run it through this quick 5-question checklist in your head. Is it necessary, reasonable, allocable, consistent, and allowed? If the answer to any of those is no, or even a hesitant maybe, that's your cue to pause and rethink. Getting your purchases right isn't just about compliance, It's about being a really effective and responsible steward of the funds that have been entrusted to you. So, what will your next purchase be?